My friends and I drove down to Daytona Beach for our junior year spring break, but a massive booking error left us scrambling for last-minute accommodations. We ended up in an incredibly run-down two-story motel on the outskirts of the main strip, taking a ground floor room that featured a connecting door to the adjacent unit. The motel was vibrating with the consistent chaos of college crowds, and the walls were paper-thin, so I easily rationalized the heavy dragging sounds coming from the next room as just another group of drunk tourists. I went to bed around 3 a.m., making sure to physically verify that the heavy brass deadbolt on our side of the connecting door was fully engaged. About an hour later, the erratic ambient noise from the strip finally died down, leaving the motel room in a suffocating, heavy quiet. I was drifting off when I heard a distinct, metallic click originating from the connecting door, followed by the slow, deliberate squeak of hinges straining on the opposite side. The air completely left my lungs, and my chest tightened as I realized the occupant next door had just unlocked their half of the barrier. A thin slice of sickly yellow light spilled through the gap beneath the frame, and a shadow deliberately pacing back and forth, pausing squarely in front of the door. I sat up rigid in the bed, my pulse hammering so violently against my ribs that I couldn't focus on anything but the brass handle of the connecting door. Without any warning, a thin, stiff piece of heavy gauge wire slid beneath the door gap, angling upwards and blindly scraping against the wood as it searched for the interior handle. I slid off the mattress and pressed my entire body weight against the door frame, watching the wire hook around the handle and attempt to pull it downward. The intruder realized the deadbolt was still thrown on my side, aggressively jerking the wire twice before abruptly withdrawing it back into the neighboring room. I woke my friends in a panic, and we barricaded the door with a heavy wooden dresser before dialing the local police dispatch. 3 cruisers arrived within 10 minutes, kicking the door into the adjacent unit after receiving no response from the occupants inside. The room was completely empty of luggage, but officers found a heavy canvas bag containing lock-picking tools, a pry bar, and a notebook logging the daily schedules of the girls staying in our specific unit. Management confirmed that the room had been booked under a stolen credit card, and the individual had been seen systematically testing the connecting doors of every ground floor room all week. My 2 friends and I booked a suspiciously cheap ground floor vacation rental in South Padre for the second week of March. The place was incredibly dated, smelling faintly of mildew and stale beer, but we were just looking for a place to crash after spending all day on the beach. By our second night, both of my friends were passed out in the living room, leaving me to take the primary bedroom in the back of the house. I turned off the overhead light, but the room remained partially illuminated by a small black Wi-Fi router sitting squarely on the dresser, directly facing the foot of the bed. I tried to ignore it, rationalizing that the owner probably just needed a Wi-Fi extender because the exterior walls were thick cinder block. But as I lay there in the dark, I noticed the single blue indicator light on the front panel wasn't blinking like normal data connections. It was a solid, unwavering stare. I pulled my phone out to check the connection and realized that the network we had been logged into all week originated from a completely different white modem out in the kitchen. My throat went completely dry as I sat up, the silence of the bedroom suddenly feeling incredibly heavy and suffocating. I got out of bed, walked over to the dresser, and picked up the black box to inspect the back panel. There were no Ethernet cables plugged into it, just a single power cord routing down to the wall outlet, and a tiny, almost invisible pinhole lens perfectly flush with the plastic casing. My chest tightened so severely I stopped breathing for a second, flipping the device over to find a high-capacity micro SD card slotted cleanly in the bottom. I ripped the power cord out of the wall, my hands shaking so badly I nearly dropped the device on the tile floor, realizing someone had been recording us since the moment we unpacked. I woke my friends up immediately, and we grabbed our bags, spending the rest of the night sitting in our locked rental car waiting for the local police to arrive. The responding officer confiscated the device, confirming it was a motion-activated recording rig specifically positioned to capture the entire bed and changing area. A month later, detectives informed us that the property owner had been arrested after a raid on his primary residence uncovered terabytes of footage cataloged by dates of different spring break tenants. We never got our security deposit back, and I refuse to stay anywhere but a heavily monitored, corporate-owned hotel now. My friends and I were spending our sophomore spring break in Miami, and by 2 a.m. on a Thursday, the crowds pouring out of the beachfront clubs were absolutely suffocating. I'd gotten separated from my group after losing signal inside, so I navigated to a quieter side street and ordered a rideshare back to the Airbnb on my own. A black sedan with a brightly glowing pink rideshare amp on the dashboard pulled up to the curb, matching the generic vehicle description listed on the screen. I was exhausted and my feet were aching, so I rationalized the driver not rolling down the window to confirm my name as just standard fatigue of working the late night party shift. I slid into the back seat, leaning my head against the cold glass as he immediately pulled away from the curb and merged into the heavy outbound traffic. About 3 blocks down, my phone buzzed with a notification, and I casually glanced down to see the message from my actual driver stating he was stuck in gridlock 10 minutes away. I looked up at the dashboard mount, realizing the phone secured in it wasn't running a GPS app. It was just a blank, dark screen. The air left my lungs completely, and a cold prickle of sweat broke out across the back of my neck as I realized I had just willingly gotten into a predator's car. I tried to casually pull the interior door handle to see if it would open at the next intersection, but it was completely dead, confirming the rear child safety locks were engaged. He took a sharp right turn away from the hotel district, heading towards an unlit industrial port, and my hands started shaking so violently I nearly dropped my phone onto the floorboard. He hit a brief, rolling stop at a poorly lit four-way intersection, and I couldn't stop to think about the physics of the moving car. I just shoved my arm through the partially open window, grabbed the exterior metal door handle, and yanked it as hard as I could. The heavy door clicked open, and I threw my entire body weight sideways, tumbling out onto the rough pavement as the car aggressively accelerated into the dark industrial park. I scrambled to my feet and sprinted towards a brightly lit gas station 3 blocks away, locking myself in the employee restroom until local police arrived to take my statement. They pulled the municipal traffic cameras and identified the vehicle as a stolen rental car entirely unaffiliated with the rideshare company, utilized specifically to abduct intoxicated tourists leaving the strip. The driver was apprehended 2 nights later. His center console containing a stun gun, heavy-duty zip ties, and 3 separate out-of-state driver's licenses belonging to missing college students. Thanks for watching. If you have a true story, send it to acestruestories@gmail.com. If you have an idea for a future video, leave a comment, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Remember, there's always another story.